Hey guys, welcome back to Hook with Anime. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Prologue. Kurosaki Household, Year 2014. 3 years before DXD. Yuzu Kurosaki was a normal, 11 years old girl, who according to her family was the splitting image of late Masaki Kurosaki, the former matriarch of Kurosaki household. She always strived for happiness of her family and usually was the one who cooked their meals, as her twin Karen had no interest whatsoever in cooking or anything else she deemed too girly, and her father and brother, they should stay as far away from the kitchen as possible. As she was the one to cook, she usually went early to the bed to wake up early in the morning. Imagine her surprise when she was suddenly awakened by strange sounds coming from downstairs midnight. She groggily woke up and looked around. She saw her twin lazily sprawled out with her blanket off the bed and on the ground. After putting the blanket back on her twin, she decided to check what the voice was, as it seemed to be coming from the bathroom downstairs. When she exited the room, she saw that the door to her brother's room was opened. Peeking inside, there was no one on the bed. Is that Ni-chan downstairs? She wondered. A few seconds later she was outside the bathroom and she peeked inside. Her face paled dramatically and ran away. This was the only sound. Ichigo Kurosaki, substitute Soul Reaper, hero of the Winter War, defeater of Aizen, hero of TYBW, vanquisher of the Quincy King and most importantly protector, was capable of making right now as he felt like his head was being split open, in a slow motion, with pain receptors enhanced by 10,000 times. He could barely make any coherent thoughts because of this headache, as he let his instincts take control, and that's how he found himself in the bathroom. And before he could do anything else, he started vomiting. Yes, he started vomiting, but what came out wasn't food, water, but some strange black tar-like substance. Where did that even come from? He would know if he ate something like vomits, more black tar, something like that. Was that Yuzu just now? He should just focus on vomiting first, everything else can come later. What was that? Yuzu's mid was a mess right now, why wouldn't it be? Her beloved Ni-chan was retching some weird black substance, and even though she wasn't interested in medical field, vomiting some black tar shouldn't be normal. So she did the only thing she could. She went to the only medical expert in the family, her father, Isshin Kurosaki. Even though he was too energetic and goofy and prone to attack Ichigo anytime in the name of making him stronger, at the very least he had his priorities straight and would be like an entirely different person during medical emergencies. As she made a beeline to her father's room, she caught a glacé at the huge portrait of her mother and silently prayed to her for her brother's well-being. Bang bang bang. As she banged on her father's room, Yuzu couldn't help but worry for her brother. What if? Whatever she was thinking was interrupted by the door. In front stood Isshin Kurosaki in his pajamas with a surprised expression on his face. Yuzu. Did you have a nightmare? Don't worry, you can sleep with me if you want, I will. Yuzu hurriedly cut him off as he was about to go full-on daughter-con mode. No. Ichigo ni. Trouble. Bathroom. She managed to say in between her breaths. Ichigo is in trouble. Isshin's face instantly turned serious as he asked his daughter. No matter what his training for Ichigo may suggest, he loved all his children very much. Yes, he is in bathroom. Yuzu, you wait here or go to Karen, I will go take care of Ichigo. Okay, she gritted out. After all, she would only get in the way as she could not stand her brother in pain. Chapter 2. Choose. When Ichigo came to, he was greeted with an ever-welcome clam of silence. As he lay there basking in the calm, he tried to recall what had happened. He remembered attending the funeral for all those who perished in the 1,000-year blood war. A name coined by Urahara. There were many casualties, lots of lives were lost, both allies and enemies alike, including Old Man Yama, aka former head captain of the 13 Court Squads, and his lieutenant Chojiro Sasaki, Captain Unohana, and Mayuri's lieutenant Nemu Kuratsuchi. There were also casualties from Quincy's side, but he hardly knew any of them. All because of Yuacha's desire for more power and some dream for an ideal world. He truly must have thought himself to be a god. Even the Quincy were deceived by him in the name of revenge. After all, what the Shinigami had done to them was pure evil. If he was in their place, he may have joined the Quincy. No, he wouldn't. Taking revenge of slaughter with more slaughter was not how he did things. Then he returned home feeling more tired than ever before. Must have been the accumulation of all the stress he felt during training in the war. He slept for a while before the disastrous headache assaulted him, and then there was that vomiting. What the fuck is wrong with me? As he was vomiting, he felt someone rubbing his back and massaging his head. Oh, that head massage was a godsend. It seemed like his head would burst open if not for that. Then, he realized that it was his father who was helping him. Yuzu must have told him. Ah, it was indeed Yuzu he saw at that time. OFCK, what kind of big brother worries his little sister? It was more of a self-depreciating statement rather than a question. What happened after vomiting? He tried to recall. He remembered washing his mouth and eating some chocolate offered by Goat Chin to clear that unpleasant aftertaste in his mouth. Then he ate a few pills Goat Face gave him and crashed on the couch. Oh, yeah, Goat Chin was saying something the entire time as well, but he didn't remember what. And was it just him, or Yuzu and Dad seemed younger? Wait. He crashed on the couch. This didn't feel like the couch at all. As Ichigo stood up and opened his eyes, he realized that he wasn't anywhere, or rather he was in a void. Everything around him was pitch black emptiness. FCK. What the hell? Was he kidnapped? Is it an enemy? Why always him? Ichigo's line of thought abruptly stopped by the fact that the entire world seemed to erupt in a golden light. As Ichigo rubbed his eyes to adjust to the sudden brightness, his eyes couldn't help but widen at the sight which was in front of his eyes. No. He couldn't believe his own eyes and wondered if it was a dream, or did Yuacha's plan succeed? Or did Aizen escape and put him in an illusion? No. Let's calm down and think first, Ichigo said aloud as he inwardly called out to Zangetsu, both of them, the Hollow Shinigami and the Quincy. But there was no reply. It had already been like that for a while now, but he thought that he could communicate with them now that he was in my inner world, Ichigo murmured. That was the conclusion he had reached looking at the world before him, because it contained his and his friends' homes, Urahara Shoten, Karakura High, his dad's clinic, Ishida's dad's hospital, the Vizard base, the Full Bring base, Ikumi-san's shop, and many more places from Karakura town which he used to frequent. But that was not the end, but just the beginning, because it also contained Sokyoku Hill and its execution platform with its huge sword, the hot spring of Soul Society, Kukaku's hand house, the sword field where he trained with old man Zangetsu to achieve Bankai, the 4th and 11th Division barracks, and then there was the entire freaking castle fortress of Las Noches from Huko Mundo, which was easily half the size of a small town. There were also the Spirit Hot Spring and forging area from the King's Palace. And that's why he at first thought that maybe Yuach succeeded in his crazy world merging plan. Or Aizen putting him in an illusion. But what made him realize that it was his inner world was his instinct, and the same feeling as his inner world, and the fact that never-ending lines of skyscrapers, very familiar skyscrapers, surrounded the entire world and into the horizon helped as well. The strangest thing, however, was that they were organized in a way didn't look messy at all, rather, it looked beautiful. He didn't even think of such a thing being possible. Such contrasting elements created a beautiful and strangely soothing scenery, as if a piece of art. So he decided to wait here either until he woke up or Zangetsu contacted him. As Ichigo stood there watching the scenery and contemplating about what to do next, the wind suddenly picked up, forming rain clouds, dark clouds which were crackling with blood-red lightning. What the? Ichigo was definitely startled by this sudden development, as evident by his jump, even though he may deny it. At the same time, a hollow's roar came from the west. The castle of Las Noches. Then, as if answering the howl, a small human-sized sun rose from the east, emitting more heat than light. Then all the shadows cast by the sun converged towards the south. Ichigo followed the shadows with his gaze as they all gathered at a river he tended to avoid to this day, the river where Grand Fisher took his mom away from him. And then before his anger could rise, the shadows formed a gate, a very familiar golden gate of hell, and a being stepped out from the gates of hell. A fact he would have treated as a joke, especially after his short job as the judge of hell, when he had repaired and sealed every possible shortcut from the hell. He didn't want the incident with Yuzu happen again. The identity of being, however, made his blood run cold. The being which came out of the doors of hell was none other than Ichigo Kurosaki, a very Quincy-looking Ichigo Kurosaki with the powers of hell Kusanada. Boom. Roar asterisk. Whoosh asterisk. A pillar of blood-red lightning fell on the roof Karakura High, however the school was completely fine. On the rooftop, no, above the rooftop was another Ichigo Kurosaki. This one was different from the Quincy Hell King, for it was wearing a normal high school uniform, but he was far from normal, as 3 pairs of very red, bird-like energy wings were present on his back with an equally red energy halo above his head. And as the sudden dust cloud settled, Ichigo found 2 more clones doubles. One was definitely an Arankar with how pale his skin was, along with the mask fragment which covered the top half of the left side of his face. Contrary to regular Arankar, however, he wore a long-sleeved, ankle-length black coat with red fur lining on the wrists and neck. The other one, however, confused him a lot because of the obvious fact that he had never seen anything or anyone like that in his entire life. That angel-like copy of him he could understand somewhat because he had seen Vollständig of the Quincy before, and it looked rather similar to that except for the color, obviously. All the Quincy seemed obsessed with white. Shudder. Anyway, this copy of him also looked rather same, except that its arms glowed red from the intense heat and its entire body seemed to be covered in tribal marking because there were markings on his hand and even his face. It strangely reminded him of Yamaji and his dad. Weird. More on that later though. And did he mention that it had 5 horns on top of head, and it wasn't even a mask like his hollow but 100% real horns, and the bastard even had a third eye. As for the attire, it had white and ceremonial dress with a pauldron of the same color. And suddenly it vanished from where it had been. Blink. Lo and behold, they were standing right in front of him. And before he could even open his mouth and ask them who they were and what the hell they were doing in his inner world, the 4 bastards beings spoke as one and uttered a single word with so much force and power and authority, his entire inner world seemed to shake and cracks began forming in the sky. Choose. What the fuck? Chapter 3. Dead. Choose. But choose what? Ichigo asked, perplexed. However, the beings acted as if they didn't hear him at all and continued speaking. We are you, but you are not us. They spoke royally, as if a king speaking to his subject. Their way of speaking and even their very presence demanded attention and respect, and a kingly prestige and pride was basically overflowing off of them. Ichigo was startled, not only because of the strange way of speaking but also what they were saying. What do you mean? Interrobang. Ichigo asked with his famous frown adorning his features. You are me, but I am not you. Correct. Ichigo Kurosaki, the hollow replied with air quotations at the name. Seeing this action, an inexplicable sense of dread filled Ichigo's heart. What's that supposed to mean? I am Ichigo Kurosaki. This dread, however, made him angry, and his anger flared. In a sense you are right, but in another you are completely wrong, the Red Angel replied in such a calm manner as if telling time. For some reason Ichigo instinctively knew that Red was telling the truth, and he knew better than to question his instincts. He already knew that it was his instincts that had saved his life so many times, not some dumb luck, like the others believed. And this realization snuffed out all the anger in him in a single blow. So, what do you want with me? Who even are you guys? And me for that matter? If not Ichigo Kurosaki? Ichigo asked them with somewhat dispirited voice. Red quirked his eyebrows in surprise. It seemed he had not anticipated such a response from the orange-haired protector. Ichigo Kurosaki is dead, Quincy Hell King declared as if the most obvious thing in the world. This earned him varying degrees of expressions. Red seemed angry for some reason. Hollow was quiet, but his eyes narrowed down a little. And the Oni just sighed in both resignation and relief. As for Ichigo, He just fell on his butt at this sudden declaration. He guessed that it may be something shocking, but this was just absurd. I am here, aren't I? Ichigo asked, trying to deny it as best as he could. The Oni sighed again at Ichigo's reaction, though this was expected. What person won't be shocked if you just up and told them they were already dead? The Quincy ignored everyone's reaction and continued. It has already been long since he died. There was some emotion in those eyes even though the voice was cold and distant. He died the moment he used final Getsuga Tensho and, sigh, he couldn't finish the sentence. No. Wait. You are saying that I died by using final Getsuga Tensho in Terabang. How is that even possible? I clearly remember 3 entire YRS after that, so how could that be? This isn't some kind of sick joke, is it in Terabang? Everyone was quiet. It's better to just show you, Oni interjected, seeing as Quincy wasn't willing to speak further. With a gesture from Ona's hand, the entire place transformed, turning into a cinema hall. Sit down, it will be a long story. With that line from Oni, the others sat down. Ichigo thought a little about whether he should do as ordered or not, but soon decided to do as told and see what kind of bullshit these beings were spewing. He is Ichigo Kurosaki, and no one could say otherwise. As Ichigo calmed down, he realized that these beings were not only identical looking but also had a similar aura to him, but he didn't know anything about them. He needed to keep his guard up and see what they were planning. It could just be that Ichigo being dead was truth from their perspective but was in reality fake. He needed answer. So he sat down on a chair. It was going to a long movie for sure, even if it skipped sleeping hours. A while ago in the Kurosaki household, Ichigo is in problem. Isshin's face instantly turned serious as he asked his daughter. Yes, he is in bathroom. Yuzu, you wait here or go to Karen, I will go take care of Ichigo. Okay, she gritted out. After all, she would only get in the way as she could not stand her brother in pain. While Yuzu was debating whether to go to her bedroom and find some comfort in Karen or stay downstairs and wait for her brother, Isshin Kurosaki moved quickly and with a sense of purpose. When he reached the bathroom, he saw that Ichigo was mostly done and was mostly only having gas issues and was trying to throw up and burp at the same time. As he approached him, however, he realized something. Ichigo's condition was anything but normal from the black tar on the sink in Ichigo's neck and mouth. He had guessed something was wrong with Ichigo with Yuzu's demeanor, but he had vainly hoped for it to be just her overprotectiveness. 2. Ichigo's body was leaking some kind of energy, although vague, he could definitely sense it standing so close to him. The energy he was releasing, however, was not a single type, rather it was very chaotic and a mixture of multiple type of energies, though he only recognized 2 of them. FCK, if his family were to know that their father just cursed, they would definitely be shocked as he was never known to want to curse. However, the situation was anything but normal and it just left his mouth. Anyway, he quickly moved behind Ichigo and rubbed his back, which in turn caused Ichigo's burps to increase, and as he continued rubbing he kept muttering things like, "That bastard. FCK. Should have told me." That's not what he told. Oni. Angel. Yokai. Malik. Fallen. After he realized that Ichigo's burping had stopped, he called out to Ichigo. Ichigo, how are you feeling now? The only response that came his way, however, was, ugh, a pained groan from Ichigo with his brows creased as if they would touch. Looking at Ichigo, he was most likely having some extreme headache, so Isshin, being the doctor he is, gave a massage to his son's head. Ah. Sigh. It should be children massaging and helping their parents at this age, not the other way around. Isshin mused to himself to lighten the mood a little. And sometime during the massage Ichigo had almost fallen asleep. Wait. Don't sleep now. Wait a little, I will give you some medicine, Isshin said as he made Ichigo gargle and carried him to the couch sofa in the living room. Isshin, leaving Ichigo, went to his bedroom to get the needed medicine. Yuzu was waiting for him there, sitting on the bed and fidgeting with her fingers. Dad, is Ni-chan okay? Seeing Ishin approach, she immediately asked. Yes. Yuzu. There's nothing to worry. It's just a little bit of food poisoning. It's actually good he got it out of system before it could do any damage. Ishin lied perfectly, for he had been preparing what to say to his two lovely daughters when they asked. He couldn't tell them the truth now, could he? For he himself didn't understand anything either. Really? Yuzu asked happily with a literal bounce in her voice as a weight she didn't know about was lifted off her shoulders. Yes. Now Yuzu, it's time for you to sleep. It's already. Ishin looked at a wall clock to his right. It's already 3:15 a.m. I know you were worried about your brother, but it's not right for a young lady like you be awake so late. Okay. Yuzu replied glumly. Now go back to your room, or does Yu-chan wants to sleep with daddy? Ishin was back to his usual antics. Before he could finish his sentence, however, Yuzu ran away like a rabid dog was after her, leaving behind a small, good night. Ishin just stood there crestfallen, but suddenly remembered what he was here for and started rummaging from the various first aid and medicine boxes. Oh. What was I? Yeah. Medicine. Medicine. Medicine, no. 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 Here. Now where's the other one? This? No. Here. Now that he had his medicine, Ishin made a small trip to kitchen to get something for Ichigo to eat before pills, maybe some chocolate. Ichigo, here, eat something. As Ishin hated him a big bar of chocolate, Ichigo opened his mouth and nibbled and ate some of it. It looks like he is half asleep, Ishin thought as he helped Ichigo swallow the medicines. He is acting just like a kid. Ah. Old days. He wondered if should move Ichigo, but decided against it, seeing as Ichigo was already asleep. Now, I have some calls to make. With that, Ishin moved outside the house to make some calls in the supernatural world. Chapter 4. White. The movie started from the very beginning, before Ichigo Kurosaki was even born. It showed a woman, a rank 3 member of the 13 Court Guards 13th Division, and her team facing against a strange hollow. The hollow had a humanoid appearance with some red tentacles. And the way it was mocking them and always aiming for the weak links and gaps which sometimes appeared in their formation, it had some degree of higher intelligence, and his spiritual pressure proved he was no pushover. But they were not going to just up and give up. No, they had both numerical advantage and the teamwork which the hollow didn't possess, and evened out the playing field. And as she, the third-ranked Shinigami, was about to deal the final blow, a sudden pain in her abdomen caused the woman to lose concentration, and the hollow by instinct took the opportunity and pierced the shoulder of the lady. Her subordinates shouted in anger and concern and rushed forward to attack the corrupted soul, but it just meted and entered the woman's body. Her body shook as if she was struggling from inside, then her arm holding her Zanpakuto moved and she slashed at one of her comrades. No, it was the hollow controlling the body. Tears fell from the woman's eyes as her body moved against her will and slaughtered her precious nakama. She couldn't hold it any longer, and with the life of her last friend, her mind also broke. The hollow remained in the body of the woman for a while, killing any Shinigami it met. The forest was littered with bodies. Then, the hollow saw another group Shinigami, most probably searching for it. It decided to toy with the Shinigami a little more. It used the woman's body to jump in front of them. Another jump and it was behind them and killed few Shinigami on the back and ran back into the jungle. The Shinigami group followed the hollow into the jungle, but there were only 3 members on their group right now. The group consisted of Shinigami from the 13th Division, a regular Shinigami by the name of Rukia Kuchiki, as well the captain and vice captain of the said division, Jishiro Yukitaki and Kaien Shiba respectively. The woman whom the hollow was using earlier was none other than the wife of Kaien Shiba, Miyako Shiba. And they were expecting a child soon too. So, it was understandable when Kaien lost his cool after seeing a disfigured half-eaten woman's body and having the hollow express its regret of not having controlled her enough before killing her. He was driven by rage and engaged the hollow in combat, vowing to take revenge for her wife. What happened next was very shocking as Kaien's Zanpakuto suddenly vanished. But Kaien had no leeway of investigating this strange development and thought it as simply the Hollow's ability. He decided to use his fists instead then. Rukia Kuchiki made a move to help her vice-captain but was stopped by her captain. Because as he called it, it was a fight with a man's honor and pride on the line. There are two kinds of fights. As long as we place ourselves in battle, we must always know the difference, a fight to defend life or a fight to defend pride. The fight was soon over but the Hollow had infected Kaien. With no hope for salvation, he asked Rukia to end his life. For he wanted to die a Shinigami and not turn into a Hollow which would hurt its own comrades. With shaking hands and a tearful face, Rukia Kuchiki ended the life of the man who was her friend and mentor and maybe something more. As Kaien's spiritual body disappeared in the wind as energy, Rukia collapsed on the ground and cried more than she ever had, maybe even more than when her sister suddenly left her and disappeared. In a secret laboratory, a man with a lab coat and brown hair and glasses stood next to a blindfolded Shinigami. They were Aizen Sosuke and Tusen Kanami, two of the captains of 13 court guards, and in front of them was the body of Miyako Shiba. When I separated her from the Hollow a while ago, I planned to use her for my experiments, but unfortunately the Hollow deteriorated too much of her body and she is useless now. But imagine my surprise when we found that child still surviving inside the deteriorated body of her mother. Fascinating, isn't it? Aizen asked with a kind smile as he pointed at a medical tank in which an albino baby with white hair and white skin was suspended. Quote. Tusen chose to remain silent as he maintained his poker face. A few YRS later. Thank you, Tusen, for providing us with these Asahuchi. The man in question just noted. Now we are going to witness a miracle today as the line between a Zanpakuto and a soul is removed, Aizen declared as he took the child he had been keeping in the medical tank out. The child was unconscious. Aizen walked towards him and laid a sword on the kid's chest. It was an Asahuchi, a medium used by Shinigami to connect with their Zanpakuto and draw its powers. Then, Aizen took a beautiful orb out of nowhere. It was an object of great power. It was the Hogyoku. Still, incomplete sai, but it should be enough for this. Aizen clutched the Hogyoku with his right hand as he wished for the barrier between the equipment and the child to break and for them to merge. Merge into a new being, a being of great power. And as he wished, the hollow nature which had infected the boy since birth but was never known because of him always being contained in the tank reared its head and was merged together with the boy and the sword. Now in their place stood a creature, a hollow-like being with black armor and swords for hands and white hair falling from the back of his horned helmet. Sabarashi. From henceforth, you shall be known as White, for what's inside can only be called white. With claps, Aizen welcomed this new addition to his team, his new pawn in his schemes. Tusen just observed from the distance as he didn't want to put himself in the harm's way. He was proven correct as the creature, now named White, attacked Aizen with immense speed and strength, its arms moving like scythe of the Grim Reaper, seeking to claim its prey's life. It was all for naught however as Aizen just *tch slapped him across the room into the wall. It was considerable distance as the room was the size of a football field in the human world. He needs to be educated first. With that Aizen turned to leave the room. I will leave that to you, Tusen. Tusen gave a nod in recognition and moved to where White was. And then the screen blacked out. In the dream theater. Earlier, Ichigo watched with confusion wondering as to who the woman was but was soon horrified as the hollow took over the body of the Shinigami woman and used her body to kill her subordinates, while mentally torturing her. He jumped out of the seat and glared at the only other people in this theater. What the hell is wrong with you guys? Why are you showing me this? Who even is this lady? I don't think I have ever seen in my life. Or are you just psychos who love seeing people suffer? Sit down. And we don't enjoy watching it, we have already witnessed it once and it caused us much anger and grief. But it is necessary for you to understand the true nature of your blade, Red replied. My blade? You mean Zangetsu? Are you saying I still don't understand the true nature of Zangetsu even after reforging them? Ichigo asked again, feeling truly shocked. At his question, Red grimaced and looked at his partners and then faced Ichigo again and replied. You know that your Zanpakuto have their own personalities, their own preferences, and their own likes and dislikes. But have you ever tried to talk to them and get to know them better? The answer is no, you didn't. As for your reforging the Zanpakuto, it was all useless. Did you not see the holes in your blades? They were imperfections, errors, not designs. That's why your sword was so brittle. Thankfully, Tsukishima's ability and Orihime's rejection returned it to the state before it was forged. Otherwise, that's enough. Red, said Quincy, we can't tell him anything more than this. He will need to find the truth himself. As for you, Ichigo, just shut up. And watch. It's for your own good, and ours as well, he added in his mind. So Ichigo sat down and watched it all, and saw how after meeting the new Shinigami group, the focus was on them now. But he sure was surprised to see Rukia, Yukitake and his look-alike. Kyan. He had heard from Rukia and others how much he looked like him, but he didn't realize that until now. With that, however, came another realization. He knew what was going to happen next. He had heard from Ganju that Rukia killed his brother, so he had asked Captain Unhona the truth when he was on the sick bay of the 4th Division, and surprisingly Captain Unhona complied and told him the whole story. Maybe his looking like Kyan had something to do with it as well. Then, the woman Shinigami was most likely Kyan's wife Miyako Shiba. Oh no, 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 Ichigo held his head and groaned. Why did he have to watch it? Just listening to it was saddening enough. And true to his words, the entire event was very saddening. However, what Yukitake said didn't sit straight with him. What was even the point of pride and honor when compared to the life? Especially when you have a family. From what he knew, Ganju and Kukaku had to grow up alone since a young due to Kyan's death. He silently made a promise to himself to always return home alive from every battle, for he had his little sisters counting on him. Then came the Aizen scene, which caught him completely off guard, especially with his cruel and inhuman experiments. It made him realize even more how evil Aizen actually was. He had almost started to forgive him in his heart after feeling his loneliness and receiving his help in defeating Yuach, but seeing his true colors rekindled his hatred for the man. How could he even think of experimenting on a child? And Tucson just supported him. Where did his famous sense of justice he had heard about go? When Aizen created and named the creature White, Ichigo Kurosaki realized that maybe, just maybe, these 4 beings knew what they were doing. Chapter 5. Forging. Ichigo's POV. The movie was over. Looking at the blackened screen, I couldn't help but stand and mutter, I understand now. Indeed, after watching the entirety of the movie, I understood many things. Who were these beings? Why were they saying Ichigo Kurosaki was dead? And why the hell they were showing me a recap of my life? And most importantly, who I was. As I looked at them, they were each sporting a small smile. How much time do we have left? I asked them with a voice so gentle, even I didn't know I was capable of. Well, my knowledge of what I truly am and what I was capable of was completely refreshed, so it wasn't a big deal. In here? Red asked. I nodded. About 426 hours, he replied. TCH. I knew it was very little time, but we have to make do. Let's get started. Is that okay? Quincy asked, and as I looked at him, he continued, can we even do it? I can sense your mind and heart are in a disarray. True. I know, but now is the perfect chance, and I know if I were to wait, I would ignore a lot of it or subconsciously suppress it, I said, and we don't have much time either. He nodded at that. Even if he won't recommend it, it was our only option. We only have one chance. Hollow spoke. We need to do it right, the first time. It's not like it's our first time anyway, Oni added with a smirk. We got enough practice at Etsu Namaya's place anyway. Ha 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 ha. True, we shared a laugh together. I think it was the first time we laughed together. I used my will to change the place and create a replica of Namaya's forge. Let's do it, we yelled, throwing our arms in the air. Then the atmosphere turned serious as we put on determined faces. Here I go, with that Oni. My Oni powers jumped and turned into fire for the forge. Then, Quincy simply held out his right arm, and as I shook it, he entered my body and the blood vein activated and the power of hell turned into a smithing hammer. I looked at the two remaining manifestations of my powers. Yes, they were the sentient forms of my very powers, unlike a Zanpakuto, which was part of a Soul Reaper's soul. They raised their arm as if grabbing something, and two very distinct katanas appeared in their hands out of thin air. One was pitch black as if the darkest moonless night, and other was so white it was actually impossible to describe it more than simply white. They were each an Asachi. Normally every Shinigami only got one Asachi, but my case was different. Aizen had fused white with one, and since white already had an Asachi, when I found and accepted my heritage in my previous world, the Asachi, Namaya gave me for white bonded with old man Zangetsu instead. Holding the katanas with one hand each, I put them in the forge and watched as they slowly started to melt in a viscous liquid similar to mercury. Then they started fusing into each other and solidifying into a metal, which was black in some places and white in another. Turn up the heat, I yelled, and the fire intensified, turning the piece of metal red instead. It's my turn now, I mumbled as I walked forward. Now, go and awaken those two sleepy heads. Red, my angelic powers manifestation, cheered me up. I can't wait to see White Zangetsu putting you in place. Hollow, well, he was the manifestation of my hollow powers, of course he would be happy about it. I gave them both a thumbs up behind my back and kept walking forward. Standing in front of the forge, I raised the hammer made of hell's energy, and every second of my life came rushing to me, both this one and the previous, and then I brought the hammer down. Slam. I remembered attending kindergarten, elementary school, middle school and high school and meeting each of my lifelong friends. Slam slam. I remember holding the Nuber Karen and Yuzu. Mom instructing me how to hold them. Slam. I remember meeting Tatsuki Arasawa, my only friend in KG and the one who introduced me to my first crush, Orihime Inoue, in elementary. Slam slam. I remember the self-hate and sadness I felt when I lost my mother. Slam. I remember my rage changing my personality, turning me into a delinquent, or so I was told. Slam slam slam. I remember befriending Keigo and Mizuhiro in middle school. Slam. In my second year of middle school, I remember saving a boy named Yasutora Sato aka Chad, my best friend, from a bunch of racist high school thugs. Slam slam. In the third year of middle school, I remember arguing with that girl Chizuru who transferred to our school. That was the start of our friendship. Huh. It was tiring to help Tatsuki in keeping her lecherous hands away from Orihime. Slam. I remember entering the world of supernatural thanks to Rukia stabbing a sword through my heart. Slam. I remember meeting Uryu Ishida, my friend and rival and cousin apparently. Slam. I remember the humiliating defeat at the hands of Byakuya and Renji. Slam. I remember them dragging their childhood friend and sister for execution without a single hesitation. Slam. I remember Byakuya destroying the powers I got from Rukia. Slam slam slam. I remember Urahara and Tessai, along with Jinta and Ururu, helping me awaken my own Shinigami powers. Slam 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 slam. I remember the training crash course Urahara gave me. Slam slam. I remember invading the Soul Society along with Chad, Uryu, and Orihime and fighting against an entire world just to save a single friend whom I had known for less than 6 months. Slam. I remember fighting against the seasoned warriors of Soul Society. Slam slam slam. I remember the desperate training for achieving Bankai in 2 days to stop the execution of Rukia. Slam. I remember beating some sense into Byakuya as to what his duties as an older sibling were. Slam. I remember Aizen ripping out the Hogyoku out of Rukia. Slam. I remember meeting the first love of my life, the one to teach me the true meaning of love, Senna. Slam slam slam. I remember Senna sacrificing herself protecting the world for ME, leaving only a red ribbon behind. Slam 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 slam. I remember everyone around me slowly forgetting her very existence. Slam slam. I remember meeting Shinji, Hachi and others wizards. Slam. I remember fighting Zangetsu, White, for control and to learn the mask. Slam. I remember invading the Hyuko Mundo for Orihime, whom I had come to love. Slam. I remember the feeling of shame for loving someone else so soon after Senna. Slam slam. I remember meeting Nell and her fractions. Slam. I remember dying to Ulquiorra cipher. Slam. I remember everything going black and letting my instincts rampage. Slam. I remember the scared and tear-stained face of Orihime. Slam slam. I remember witnessing Aizen plus Hogyoku's powers. Slam. I remember training in the Dongai for 3 years. Slam. I remember learning final Getsuga Tensho. Slam slam. I remember the sadness and unwillingness of Tensa. Slam. I remember weakening Aizen enough for Ura by using final Getsuga Tensho. Slam slam. But my execution of the technique left much to be desired. Why? Because, how could I perform it when it needed me to become Getsuga itself, but I kept suppressing one part of me and was unaware of another? The contradictory nature of my technique resulted in a power much greater than possible, similar to a nuclear reaction, but shattered my core of power. I would be dead the moment my spiritual energy ended, because it also housed my soul. Unbeknownst to me, thankfully, I was a powerhouse in that manner. I remember invading hell to save my sister Yuzu. Slam. I remember using the power of hell to judge the sins of Kokuto, whom I thought was similar to me, and giving him a sentence for eternity. Slam slam. The power of hell was great indeed. If I accepted the position of Hell King, I could easily surpass Butterfly Aizen, but it wished for me to constantly judge people for their sins, even minor ones, and I didn't have that much problem with it, but I still had a family and a life to live. So, I told Hell, not now. Thankfully, Hell understood my words and allowed us to leave. When I left Hell, my spiritual energy and Hell's energy instantly left me, but I didn't die. It seemed Hell had repaired, patched up, my core as a thank you gift. I remember spending 18 months of my powerless life pathetically. Zangetsu both ever asked me only one thing: to keep moving forward and to not despair, and I couldn't even uphold that. Pathetic. Slam. I remember my supernatural friends distancing themselves because they didn't want to hurt my feelings, but it hurt more than ever because they were treating me as a fragile piece of glass. They even used code words around me, who, although depowered now, who was already aware and involved in the world of supernatural. Slam slam. I remembered the bitterness in my heart when no one from the supernatural contacted me, despite the existence of Gigai, not Rukia, not Renji, even Urahara or Yoruichi, and the wizards. For all their talk about being a family, they had discarded me as the useless trash. That was the only thought going through my head at the time. Slam. Because of that, I made some of biggest mistakes in my life. 1. I alienated myself from my human friends. I was so deep in my self-dug pit of despair that I failed to notice the people who were doing their best for me. Tatsuki. I caused her a lot of pain by just treating her as a classmate. We were so much more than just friends, not lovers, but definitely more than friends. We just connected so well together. I truly was a dumbass. Slam slam. 2. I never questioned the motive of Kubo Ginjo in the execution. I was not one to trust people easily, so why did I not treat them the same? I guess I was just that desperate for regaining my powers. Slam. I recalled the despair I felt when Ginjo stole my powers. It was so great that I don't know what I would have done if Rukia didn't give me my powers. Was a 1,000 times worse than losing my powers. Slam slam. When a beggar stays a beggar, he will not feel anything. But when a beggar wins a lottery, but then bankrupts himself soon after and back to being a beggar, he would feel a lot more pain and regret. This saying perfectly encompassed how I felt during that time. Slam. I was so shook by this incident that I basically allowed the Gote 13 court guards, and Yamaji the permission to use me as a tool. I was that desperate for power. Slam slam. Then, the war started. Many lives were lost in this war. Even the Arankars were dragged into this, I later learned. Slam. I remembered the shattering of Zangetsu and how it needed to be reforged. But I couldn't do so until I understood my true heritage and truth of Zangetsu. Slam slam. The shock I felt from the truth of my true lineage and identity of my Zanpakuto was so great, I couldn't process it all. But I had no choice but to forge true Zangetsu, with all that confusion, resulting the Zanpakuto to be a glass cannon, sharp yet brittle. Slam. I remember finally defeating the abomination Yuwatch had become with everyone's help. Slam slam. I remember Yuwatch stealing my Quincy and Shinigami powers at the last moment. Slam. The forceful extraction of my powers made the wound on my core. I lived final weeks my life without knowing that I had very limited time. Slam slam. On the night of funeral, death, which had been delayed for so long, finally claimed me, Ichigo Kurosaki. Slam. But that was just the beginning of next great adventure. Slam slam. I was reincarnated into this world which was so similar yet different from my own. Slam slam. Unfortunately, I had lost all the memories of my previous life and my soul was whole again, meaning White and Old Man were gone. Slam. Luckily, I was reborn into the same family as my past life. Slam slam. Family. Huh. Such a short, simple yet powerful word. Blood related or otherwise family was family. Slam. Mom, Dad, Karen, Yuzu. Family. Slam slam. My life till the elementary was same, then it changed from when I met Orihime in Kurosaki clinic worrying for her brother. Slam. I remember the promise I made to her that day. To be her strength. Slam slam. I remember the declaration that I made in front of Tatsuki to marry her. What? I was 8 at the time. Slam. Then, I remember Mom falling ill to seem unknown disease and passing away, asking me to be a kind person and to take care of my sisters. Slam slam. I never made any more true friends, other than Tatsuki and Orihime, even though I had hundreds of classmates, friends. Slam. I remember graduating from middle school last week. I would be entering high school again soon. Slam slam. Then I remember waking in the middle of night and finding the red ribbon of Senna on the window. Slam. When I touched it, all the memories of my past life came rushing back to me. From the ribbon. Slam slam. Then, the vomiting and headache incident occurred. Slam. Slam slam. Slam. Slam slam. Slam. Slam slam. Third person POV. Ichigo moved in front of the forge and raised his arm high above and seemed to be recalling something. Then he brought it down. It had so much force contained in it that not a single ripple appeared in the air. Ichigo kept raising and bringing the hammer down again and again. Again and again. Various expressions flashing by his face each second. Happiness. Sadness. Love. Despair. Hope. Anger. Hate. Fury. Restlessness. Desperation. Joy. And much more which couldn't be expressed in mere words. In the beginning, he was inexperienced and every movement was wasting a lot of energy, but as he kept swinging the hammer, his posture corrected itself and he found a rhythm to work with. Each of his swings carried great emotion and Ichigo was using these very emotions to shape the white and black metal. Zanpakuto are a part of their wielder's soul, but they have their own memories, so what would happen if they were given full access to their host's memories? But with each of his swings the power behind them grew and the fire responded to the force, slowly turning darker, hotter and fiercer. That was not the problem was that Ichigo's form was cracking. Seeing this, Hollow gave a nod red and went behind Ichigo, putting his hands on Ichigo's back as the cracks were transferred to him. His high-speed regeneration worked like crazy to heal them. The cracks kept appearing on Ichigo and then were transferred to Hollow, whose regeneration kept working hard on healing him. As for Red, after receiving the nod from Hollow, he went to the lake and dived in it, reaching its base and released all his powers, dispersing and mixing them into the very water, dyeing it red as he slowly faded. After a while the lake had turned deep blood red and no traces of Ichigo's angelic manifestation could be found. Smosh. With a last mighty swing Ichigo Kurosaki brought Hell's hammer down on the almost completed weapon, and with that the Hollow's form couldn't hold anymore and shattered, the hollow spiritual energy rushing back into Ichigo. When the hammer touched the soul weapon, it melted into the weapon and the now black flame followed suit rushing into the sword. Almost, Ichigo told himself as he held the hot red weapon. Hiss asterisk. When it came in contact with Ichigo's hand, the heat burned his skin even though he had blood vein active because Yuach had stolen most of his Shinigami and Quincy power, leaving behind only the hollow, which was a poison to the Quincy, with a hint of Shinigami powers. And the Quincy powers he had inherited from his mother. Ignoring the burning pain in his palms, Ichigo lifted the weapon and went to the blood-colored lake. It was time for quenching. As he brought the blade down, the lake started boiling and waves surged toward the blade, baptizing the blade with the holy light powers of the angels. The powers of Oni and Hell in the blade reacted differently. The Oni accepted the power, but Hell was rejecting Heaven's power. It created a smoke screen. Standing there in the midst of waves, Ichigo Kurosaki could now finally relax a little as the most important stage was done. All that was needed was time. Ichigo didn't know if he had that time though. Earlier Red had said that they could maintain their sentient form and help him for another 426 hours, but he didn't know how much time had passed. Red, Hollow, Quincy and Oni were just his powers who had gained sentience due to the sudden increase of the mass of his soul. They would have vanished after a while anyway, but still he felt a pang of guilt as they each sacrificed their sentience to help him awaken, White Zangetsu and Old Man Zangetsu. Ichigo sighed as he stood amidst the waves holding his blade upside down. Holding onto the handle of the blade with both hands, he looked like some valiant king waiting for a promised time. Karakura Town, evening, 7 p.m. To the average people of Karakura Town, it was a normal day. There was nothing remarkable, nothing important. Overall a very forgettable day. One that some would rather forget altogether. However, that was not case for Kurosaki family. Ichigo, the oldest son of the family, was ill. He had not waken up from his sleep till now. Isshin, his father, had let him sleep till noon considering the condition of Ichigo from last night. But when Ichigo still didn't wake up, he grew worried. He could sense Ichigo's temperature was rising in weird markings similar to his Kijin clan, a higher subspecies of Oni clan, but rather than arms they started to form on his chest and his hair kept flickering between black and orange. This was not natural. Why didn't you wake me up when he was ill? Enraged voice of Karen Kurosaki could be heard upstairs. I didn't know what to do. Sob, Yuzu's tearful response came. Karen also started sobbing. Sob. The twins arguing didn't prove to be any good to Isshin's state of mind either. They already had such arguments for the nth time since Karen and Yuzu were informed. Yuzu had been blaming herself for not finding Ichigo sooner last night, and Karen, she just didn't know what to do. The reason for her occasional outbursts. He remembered his daughter ordering him, "You are a doctor. Fix him. Fix Nikan." But this thing, whatever was happening to Ichigo, was something he hadn't seen ever, never in human world nor in Urakanto. His and Masaki's children were supposed to be just normal humans. He just hoped that man would come sooner. He had already called him last night and didn't know what was taking so long. Hence, here he was pacing in front of the door. Yo, Isshin, suddenly there was a voice next to his ears. Isshin would forever deny all claims of ever screaming like a girl and jumping in fright. There standing behind him was a tall man appearing to be in his 20s with an average build, black hair, golden bangs and black goatee, holding a camera in his right hand. However, if there was a thing different from a human, it was that he had 12 jet black wings growing out of his back. Your reactions are always priceless, the man said with a grin on his face. Azazel, Isshin breathed a sigh of relief. You are finally here. Chapter 6. Congratulations. Azazel was having a good day, no scratch that he was having a great day like no other. First, he managed to get an autographed picture with the lady herself. Kaben Rider Pinky, then Fafnir, the Dragon King from Norse legends, agreed to form a contract with Azazel to help him in his sacred gear research, though its prize was definitely a hefty one, as he had to give away 1/4 of his antique sake and beer collection, and Azazel had the biggest collection, or maybe second biggest, but it didn't matter much because he could easily refill the collection in next 2 to 3 decades and couldn't be compared to a Dragon King's help. However, Fafnir had another request for which Azazel had to negotiate the price with the dragon for the next 7 hours, leading to both of them being extremely exhausted, and the price they settled on was 5 panties of ultra-rare quality. One of them was even Gabriel's pants. Sob. Going back to his club in Las Vegas, Azazel asked Shemhazai to cancel all his meetings for the week so he could rest. He even turned off his contact circle, leaving only the emergency line active. But happiness and headache came hand in hand, as 2 hours later he was woken by the extremely irritating sound of his emergency number. Who is it? Azazel wondered. If it was a problem from Grigori, then his vice wouldn't have simply called him, so that only left other mythical factions. He quickly deduced, and checking the contact circle revealed the name of someone he never thought he would ever meet again. Ishin, the heir of East Yukai faction and former Kishin. Why is he contacting me now? Azazel wondered, and listening to the audio recording proved no use, as it only asked him to hurry over to the given coordinate as soon as possible. Is this some kind of trap? He even entertained the possibility of it being a trap, but Ishin wasn't that kind of guy, but still, him being used or threatened was still a possibility, and despite the calm on the surface, the tension between various factions was all too high, one of his reasons for so fiercely putting forth and promoting the idea of a peace treaty. Thankfully he had a weapon just for this type of situation, and reaching into his subspace he produced a camera. Well, yes but no, for you see it was a magical device shaped like that. Its real purpose was to dispel any and all magic circles in a 1-kilometer radius. Though it wasn't an offensive weapon, he was more than confident about escaping even from top 10. Calculating the magical coordinates, Azazel created a magic circle and did a silent teleport, one without any prior disturbance at the other end. Looking around, he had teleported to a Japanese household. In front of him was a middle-aged man pacing back and forth in front of the door, and he, Azazel, was standing in the hallway. Looks like he really was waiting for me, Azazel thought to himself as his suspicions lessened a little. Yo Ishin, he greeted with a cheerful voice behind Ishin's ears, and the result was as expected. Ishin jumped in fright. But what happened next made him furrow his brows. Ishin was delighted to see him. It looked as if all his worries were about to be solved at once. Azazel, you are finally here. Finally. Oh right, I turned off all the contact circles. Come with me. Hurry. Ishin said as he grabbed the hand of Fallen's governor and practically dragged him upstairs. I don't know what's happening to Ichigo. You are my only choice. Moved him upstairs. Vomiting. Yesterday. Asleep, Ishin rambled on and on with the speed of a bullet train, but he managed to piece together a story, or something like that. Something happened to Ichigo which caused him to vomit black tar and wasn't waking up since last night. Also, it probably had something to do with the supernatural world, otherwise, he would have contacted the hospital or a healer, not him. Standing before the plain-looking door, one could feel the oppressive aura emitting from inside, as if some apex predator were inside. Though this aura could only be felt by those involved with the supernatural and was ignored by common people. That was the reason why, although Ishin had a nonchalant expression while Azazel's had hardened, but he had a strange gleam in his eyes. Through his vast knowledge and experience, he was instantly able to deduce the nature of this aura, and his curiosity as a researcher had been awoken. It was very similar to Tuki but was completely different. Tuki called upon the power of life force, however this aura called upon the power of the very soul itself, soul power if you may. The nature of these two energies was so different yet similar. If he had to give an example, it would be the flames of hell and the freezing flames of the nether world. As they entered the room, Azazel surveyed the situation inside. Inside, the room was so plain it looked like a guest room or something, nothing like what he had expected a growing teen's room to look like. There was a bed where his would-be patient was laid down sweating bullets, and there was a bookcase, where some mangas and light novels along with the textbooks were lined together. Other than that, there were two girls sitting on chairs adjacent to the bed, clearly the chairs were moved there. The girls were obviously twins, one had short black hair and the other had brown hair tied in a ponytail. As he and Ishin entered the room, the girls turned to look at them. There were tear marks on their faces, they seemed to have been crying. Who's that? Goat face? The girl with black hair asked Ishin. Goat face. PFTT, he had to maintain a poker face to keep himself from laughing. Ha 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 ha. He is a friend of mine and is here to help Ichigo, Ishin answered, but what's with the pause before calling me a friend? Could it be that you didn't consider me your friend? Well, if it were another time Azazel may have tried to embarrass Ishin with this, but not now. He had to take this seriously both for his own scientific curiosity and Ishin's request. The answer seemed to have caught the twins' interest as their ears perked up. Yo, Azazel gave a simple greeting by waving his hand. Are you a doctor? The black one, Karen, asked him. Nope. Azazel answered truthfully. Other than basic and emergency first aid, he had no interest or knowledge in the human medical field. There were spells which did the same thing but more effectively, so why bother? I am not a doctor at all. Huh. Then what are you even doing here? Karen scowled. Even the brown one, Yuzu, frowned. It didn't feel good to be talked about like this, but he could understand their worries. Magic, Azazel swiftly replied. Azazel, Ishin tried to say something but Azazel swiftly interjected. Ishin, you need to tell them the truth sooner or later, and I am not going to be messing with a child's memories. Yeah, Ishin sighed. Karen, Yuzu, there's a lot you don't know about and I know you are confused, but I will tell you everything later, but right now all you need to know right now is that the supernatural world is real. The look of confusion on their faces only grew bigger, but oh well. Going over to the bed, Azazel checked the boy's condition. His body temperature was sure high and his breathing was haggard, but nothing that strange. Suddenly, in a blink, his orange hair was now snowy white. Looks like he had spoken too soon. Blink blink. You guys saw it too, right? Turning around, he asked them. The girls seemed as shocked as Azazel himself was, and Ishin, well, he looked more surprised than shocked. As they looked at him, he explained, yesterday, after he fell asleep, his hair started changing between black and orange, white as new. And I thought color changing had stopped as it remained orange entire morning. Maybe talents as a metamorphagus. As Azazel was thinking about the implications of this, he asked Ishin, any other anomaly? Strange tattoo-like marking similar to Kishin clan's rite of passage tattoos appeared on his chest, and oh, yeah, I sensed Angel and Oni aura along with some others I didn't recognize on him. What? You are telling that to me now? I think I know what is happening to him. Earlier you said he had vomiting, right? Did you collect any sample of it? Hurry, it's important. Azazel was instantly agitated. He should have just told all that to me from the beginning. Oh, okay. Yeah, here's the sample. I thought you might need it, Ishin replied with a small smile and took out a small glass container which seemed to be filled with a black substance. That's what he vomited. Kareem's voice came from behind as she wrinkled her nose and tears started to fill Yuzu's eyes. Now everyone make room. I need to set up the equipment. Azazel said with a voice a little higher than usual. He didn't like that strange atmosphere at all. And then Azazel started to take his equipment out of the subspace where he had stored them. Some were big and bulky and heavy, for humans, some were small and delicate, some looked like modern sci-fi equipment while others were just bizarre looking. Oye! Ishin, remove the shirt of your son. Azazel barked as Ishin did as told while Karen and Yuzu covered their eyes and averted their faces. Indeed, there was a tattoo on the kid's chest. It was a black circle on the center of the chest with branches extending upwards and downwards and flips Ichigo to show the back asterisk meeting at the circle on the back, which was at the exact same location as the front. In a way it looked like a hole. Taking some circular stickers, Azazel placed them on a few locations according to some strange calculation and placing a few on the front as well. In his peripheral vision, Azazel saw that the twins still had their eyes closed, so he told Ishin, "Now you can put the shirt back on," and took the tar container and poured its contents in a test tube which he placed in another machine, which after being on started to produce some low noises. Taking out a syringe, Azazel took some blood from Ichigo as well and placed it on a side slot in the machine. "With that done, let's get started," he declared as he started to create a magic circle. "You people leave the room for a moment or it will cause problems while calculating soul frequency." Saying that, Azazel removed everyone except himself and the bed-bound Ichigo out of the room. "Now, explain. What do you mean supernatural is real? Who is that man? And what is happening to Ni-san?" Outside Ichigo's room, Karen Kurosaki couldn't deal with the information and emotional overload and demanded answers to her father, Go-chin, Ishin Kurosaki. Yuzu Kurosaki, although not speaking, had the same determined look on her face. Seeing them acting like this, Ishin sighed. "Yuzu, Karen, sigh, it's just as I said. The supernatural world is real. All myth and legends aren't just fictions. Gods, demons, yokai, angels, devils, they are all real. That man just now was Azazel, a fallen angel. Masaki was one as well, and I used to be a daiyukai, but we both became humans, and don't ask, it's a long story. I promise you, I will tell you. Please. Fine. But you still haven't told us what's happening to Ni-chan." "That. I don't know anything as well," Ishin awkwardly said. "Then how can you leave Ni-chan with a fallen angel?" This time it was Yuzu questioning Ishin. "Yuzu, you don't need to be worried at all. Azazel is one of the smartest person in the entire world, and if anyone can figure out what's happening to Ichigo, it's him, and never confuse anyone's race with their personality. He may be a fallen, but he is least not the kind who will backstab someone." Boom. As the three were talking, there was an explosive sound as the door to Ichigo's room was blasted away, with Azazel following it as he slammed into the wall. Aha ha 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 ha. Azazel's laughter followed soon after. Even though his body looked badly damaged, his face was full of happiness like a child for whom Christmas had come early. "Azazel, are you okay? What happened?" Ishin instantly rushed to Azazel's side as he inquired. "Ha ha ha ha. Okay. I am more than okay. This is definitely the best day of my life. Ever." Azazel laughed again as he stood up from the rubble. "Anyway. Congratulations. All three of you are really blessed. Ha 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 ha." Regarding Azazel's congratulations, the three in question appeared extremely confused, and seeing their confusion, he further clarified after recomposing himself. "Congratulations again, Ishin. You are probably the first yokai to father a god." "What?" Yuzu asked dumbfoundedly. Well, no one could fault her though. If they were in her situation, they would have reacted the same. Ishin and Karen also looked toward Azazel as if they couldn't believe what they just heard. Seeing this, Azazel's grin grew large enough to split his face, and he repeated everything word for word. "Your brother, Ichigo, is becoming a god." Azazel's laughter boomed as he merrily hopped around. "It's gonna be my first time seeing the birth of a god, ha 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 ha. I thought his body was just getting cleansed of impurities for his supernatural side to awaken, ha 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 ha, but to think he will prove me wrong. Oh, indeed, being wrong once in a while is truly great." Quote. Chapter 7. Divine Energy. Earlier, Azazel was ecstatic. How couldn't he be? As he ran around the room operating and checking the data provided by the strange devices he seemed to have pulled out of nowhere. The data was simply out of the charts and not in "you're overpowered" kinda way, but I didn't know this was possible way. He was for the first time in centuries remembering all the fun he had in the Silver City's R&D department, inventing and discovering new things, or when he first learned about sacred gears and started to study them. It is so much fun. This thought suddenly emerged in his mind. Beep beep beep. Suddenly he heard beeping coming from one of the devices to his left. He hurriedly came to the device. It was showing Ichigo Kurosaki's aura capacity, meaning how much energy his body could generate. The beeping only meant one thing, that was increase or decrease in capacity. In this case, the latter. An increase in aura capacity was something very common. With training or age, one's total capacity would definitely increase. And decrease was its exact opposite. It usually only occurred when someone was grievously injured. So, this sudden information that Ichigo's mana was decreasing caused even Azazel, who was one of the most knowledgeable people in the current supernatural world, caused him to fluster. He soon rushed to Ichigo's side and poured in his own aura to check what was wrong with the kid. Unfortunately, he in his fluster forgot something very, very common, that one's body didn't react kindly to foreign substances. If it was someone else, nothing much would have happened, but this was Ichigo Kurosaki, whose aura was currently extremely volatile due to his condition at the moment. So, the result was as Azazel pushed in his aura, Ichigo's aura reacted and created an outward explosion, destroying many of the equipments and throwing Azazel and removing the door out of its hinges. Crash. After getting blasted by the aura, Azazel lay there embedded in a wall. He could vaguely hear Ishin's call of concern, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the energy he felt from the blast. He was 1000% sure that it was divine energy. He knew it very well. Having a god for a father and fighting against and with divine beings was sure to make you familiar with it. But how could it be? Could it be? No, that was absurd, completely illogical. But when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Suddenly Azazel burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. Azazel, are you okay? What happened? Ishin's voice was heard as he and the twins instantly rushed to Azazel's side and inquired. Ha 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 ha. Okay. Okay. I am more than okay. This is definitely the best day of my life. Ever. Azazel laughed again as he stood up from the rubble. Anyway. Congratulations. All three of you are really blessed. Ha 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 ha. Regarding Azazel's congratulations, the three in question appeared extremely confused, and seeing their confusion, he further clarified after recomposing himself. Congratulations again. Ishin, you are probably the first Yukai to father a god. What? Yuzu, the brown-haired twin, asked dumbfoundedly. Seeing this, Azazel's grin grew large enough to split his face and he repeated everything word for word. Your brother, Ichigo, is becoming a god. Azazel's laughter boomed as he merrily hopped around. It's gonna be my first time seeing the birth of a god, ha 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 ha. I thought his body was just getting cleansed of impurities for his supernatural side to awaken, ha 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 ha, but to think he will prove me wrong. Oh, indeed, being wrong once in a while is truly great. Quote. Azazel knew he was being out of character. It wasn't like him at all, but the birth of a god or Buddha was a tightly guarded secret by each mythical faction. The only thing known to most was that after turning into a god, no matter how little, one would never age unless they wanted to. Since most of the biblical faction was a creation of his father, the God of the Bible, they couldn't attain divinity even after gaining strength to do so. The same could be said about yokais, creations of Amaterasu. The very thought about the amount of data he could get, wait. Data. No. Azazel's eyes widened in horror as he remembered something and immediately rushed back into Ichigo's room, leaving the Kurosaki family behind. He could vaguely hear them following him inside the room. Inside, everything was a mess, and every one of Azazel's gizmos were badly damaged and some of them weren't even recoverable anymore. The only thing safe was the bed where Ichigo was peacefully sleeping, form resting. He seemed to be much more comfortable now, and his hair had turned golden. No. Azazel's grief-filled voice as he cradled some gadgets echoed in the air. Meanwhile, in Ichigo's mindscape, crash. As a giant wave receded, Ichigo's form could finally be seen. Pant. He was breathing heavily, and although he didn't have any injuries on his body, his shihakusho was torn in many places. I didn't think it would be this difficult, Ichigo muttered as he readjusted his grip on the blade and took a tighter stance. Everything was supposed to be going smoothly as he had already forged the true Zangetsu, but the waves, which were supposed to be purifying Zangetsu from all the foreign contamination, slowly started getting stronger and stronger, and he was forced to split his attention and Reiatsu to protect himself and to not disturb the awakening process, which was also consuming huge amounts of Reiatsu. Not to mention the strange phenomenon which was changing the very nature of his Reiatsu by compressing it. He didn't know what it was changing into, but it felt like something good, but he wasn't happy at all. If it were some other time maybe, but it was happening at the wrong time. He needed all the Reiatsu he could, but why must everything go wrong at the crucial moment? Author's note. Think of it as turning 30 units of a thing into 1 unit of another. That's how much his Reiatsu is being compressed. The awakening was only 37% complete and Ichigo had already lost more than 80% of his Reiatsu by the three-way drain on his reserves. Though there was this new energy, about 35% of Reiatsu's worth, he didn't want to use this energy as it still seemed to be undergoing some dramatic changes. Who knows what kind of effect it will have on awakening? Ichigo didn't want to endanger Zangetsu ever again by his own stupidity. Everything will be alright. I just need to keep walking forward and don't doubt myself, just like Asen and Zangetsu said, and everything will work out. Ichigo tried to cheer himself until he suddenly felt some foreign yet familiar energy enter his body and his already weak control broke and most of his remaining Reiatsu left his body at such speed that even Yoriichi would pale in comparison. Splash. And the wave which was about to attack him suddenly lost its momentum and fell back into the lake. It seemed that whatever happened just now calmed the rampant energy in the lake. However, Ichigo was panicking now. He barely had any Reiatsu left. He didn't even know if he could complete the awakening at all. But more importantly, the amount of Reiatsu that left his body was very likely to cause some kind of explosion. Are Yuzu and Karen and Dad okay? What should I do? Ichigo didn't know what to do. He didn't have any more energy to keep fueling the awakening, nor did he know of the condition outside, and the new energy was getting more unstable by the second. No one could fault him for panicking, all things considered, but he was still rational enough. Calm down. It was such a simple sentence, but it immediately startled our favorite hybrid. Who? This was supposed to be his mindscape, his inner world. There should be no one except him and Zangetsu's, and they were taking a nap and hadn't woken yet. Then where did this voice come from? Oh. Don't worry about me. Call me whatever you wish. I am sort of your fan. When I suddenly sensed a new divinity, it immediately piqued my interest because of your anomalous aura. So I decided to check your memories, and to be honest, I am impressed. One protector. It was a child's voice, maybe a young teen, but it was difficult to ascertain the gender of the speaker and there was nobody in sight. And thinking deeper, it seemed that rather than voice a thought was transmitted. And by the strangeness of it, it was most likely a different language as well. Gulp. Ichigo swallowed deeply. He could feel the power that radiated off the thought transmission. Whoever this is, you watch, feels like a newborn child against a well-trained martial artist, and that's just from the leaked feeling of power. Even if I was at my peak, I don't know if I will be able to even handle their presence. Ichigo thought as his grip subconsciously tightened. Sorry about that. No need to fear me. The voice was transmitted again, but this time it felt like any other human's voice without any feeling of power. It seemed the being had noticed Ichigo's discomfort and sealed the leaked aura. I haven't used this technique in a long while, so some energy leaked. Haha. I hope you don't mind. The voice, just like last time, carried a profound sense of kindness, just that Ichigo was too overwhelmed by the aura to notice it earlier. Who are you? What do you want, and what divinity? Ichigo carefully asked, feeling fearful of the unknown being. That in itself was shocking, as he had never felt fear for himself ever. He never feared the Quincy, Hollows, Arankars, or even Gote 13 or Squad 0, Ikibe, Yamamoto, and Yuwatch were the same. He even invaded 3 different worlds just for the sake of people he cared about. I was just interested in the new divinity which suddenly appeared in this world a few seconds ago. Ichigo made a confused face as the being explained, when your aura leaked just now, I sensed your divinity. And divinity is, as the name suggests, deification, the process of turning into a god or Buddha. Quote? Ichigo had even more questions now. Gods and Buddhas are real. Was that who this person was? I am turning into one myself as well. So what's your wish? As I said, I was interested in the new divinity, so I watched interesting parts of your past life, the being replied casually as if he hadn't just flipped through Ichigo's life like some manga or anime. Ichigo felt righteous anger rise within him. And sensing the sudden change in the mood, the being replied, I needed to make sure of your character. Throughout history, mankind has tried to achieve immortality and godhood, and those in search of godhood are mostly evil maniacs. After all, you are a being who is achieving something like this without the help of any mythological faction, and it is my job to destroy that which should not be. When the being mentioned, seeking godhood, and evil maniac, Ichigo immediately remembered Aizen, a prime example of this. This did indeed sound like a good enough reason for invading Ichigo's privacy, and his anger receded a little, but he still didn't like that. Well, the events of your past life were pretty much the most interesting thing I came across in maybe a few centuries. A different world and a different supernatural system. Very interesting indeed, and also, I personally like your personality to protect those who you care about. So I thought I should give you a gift for all you have sacrificed without expecting anything in return. What do you want? Tell me. No need to be shy. Ichigo blushed a little when the being praised his personality, but soon recovered. A wish? Huh. What should I wish for? Ichigo thought as he looked around and suddenly had an idea, but soon another thought came as he fell into contemplation. Do you want to go back to your previous world? Because sorry, but I can't. That world isn't in my jurisdiction, and even if it was, sending you back safe would be impossible, the being suddenly said. They must have thought that Ichigo wished to go back to his previous world. But Ichigo shook his head. Oh, yeah, I would have if I was trapped in this world or something, but I have already lived my past life, no matter how short it was, and even though I had to live many of my loved ones behind. But this life is also real, and there are still people I care about and those who care for me. I can't just leave these people behind to chase after a dream. To be honest, although I did regain all my past life memories, they feel more like dreams. You are very mature for your age. Both lives combined. Maybe an Before I ask for my wish, can you please tell me if my family is okay? Oh, yes. None of the three are physically hurt, though they're very, very worried about you. Exhale. Ichigo let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. About the wish, since you have already watched my memories, can you help me complete the awakening of Zangetsu? Yeah, no problem. I thought you would ask for something like this, and well, even though not intentional on your part, it will stabilize your divinity as well. Thank you. He still didn't know the being's identity. Nope. Not telling. Figure it out yourself. I left many clues behind. Okay. Ichigo gave a short reply. Why did he feel like it was some sort of game to the being? Ichigo was sitting cross-legged as he followed the instructions being given. Apparently, they could not come to the inner world, but even if they did come, it would be unnecessary because they had already pretty much solved everything. The divine energy, as Ichigo found it was called, was also capable of supporting the awakening process once stabilized, and he was already learning the process of its stabilization from the being. Close your eyes and clear your mind of everything. Ichigo closed his eyes. He tried to do as the voice was telling him. He tried to remember the feeling of the void he felt earlier. Now, imagine your body is a sea and try to reach the bottom of it, a sea. He remembered when his inner world was completely submerged. Reach the bottom, Ichigo muttered as he started swimming downward. The end. Thank you for watching, guys.